what I want to do now is talk about technological fundamentalism. Now you may be wondering, what's he up to? Because whatever your position on religious fundamentalism, whether you consider yourself a fundamentalist or anti-fundamentalist, whatever it is, you've heard of that one. The discussion of national fundamentalism, even if you've never heard it framed in that way, that one's pretty clear. Economic fundamentalism, I think, isn't difficult to understand. What in the world could I mean by technological fundamentalism? Okay. What I mean by that is a conceptual framework, a set of assumptions, and a network of ideas that suggests that whatever problems we have on the planet today, and we have some problems with ecological crises, yes? Climate change, groundwater contamination, dead zones in the oceans, lack of, or declining biodiversity, extinction of species. You're aware of this. We've talked about it before. Out in the ecosphere, right, there are some problems, correct? Just a slight nod to affirm that you're aware of this. Okay. So the presence of nearly 7 billion people on the planet now has produced a set of what I would call crises in the health of the ecosphere that, after all, we depend on to live. Okay. So how do you understand those problems? Okay. That's the question. What ideology guides your understanding of the ecological crises? I'm arguing that the dominant ideology in the United States is what I'm calling technological fundamentalism, defined this way: the belief that whatever problems we have now in the relationship of the human species to the ecosphere can be solved by high technology, high energy solutions. That we can create high technology, high energy solutions to the problems we face. Problems of, let's take one I've spent a lot of time thinking about, agriculture. We have problems of soil erosion, problems of a declining health of the soil. There's less soil than there used to be, and it's less healthy than it used to be. Since we grow the vast majority of the food we eat in soil, that seems to be a problem, yes? If we rely on food grown in soil, you know, in case you're not aware of this, just a slight digression. When you go to the supermarket, that food was once in the dirt, yes? Okay, you're aware of this. Sometimes people who grew up in cities aren't familiar with this concept, that food comes from dirt. Okay. If there's less dirt and the dirt that's there is less fertile, is that a problem? Yeah, it's a big problem. Soil erosion. The United States, we've lost probably half of the topsoil since Europeans came and started plowing this continent. Half the topsoil has eroded, washed away because of the way that we farm. Does that seem like a problem? Topsoil, you can't generate topsoil overnight. Topsoil takes a long time to regenerate. So we are eroding our soil at a level, what we would call beyond replacement levels. Okay? We are eroding soil faster than soil can be created. Right? And because of the way we farm, that soil is also increasingly less fertile because we're exhausting the fertility of the soil. In case you're not aware, this is a big, big problem. Okay, so you have a problem. What do? You got to solve it because there's 7 billion people who want something for dinner. Okay? Well, you solve it from a technological fundamentalist point of view by using high energy, high technology to mitigate the problem. And that means things like fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, genetic modification of crops, all sorts of things. You got a problem with soil, that's okay. We're going to get you a high-tech solution, right? In the 1960s, there was a term for this called the Green Revolution, the use of new scientific discoveries to increase yields. And you know what? It worked. It worked at least in the short term. Yields in this country, and in fact around the world, have increased them dramatically. And that's an interesting fact. As we have eroded the soil and decreased the fertility of the soil, yields, the amount of crops per acre you can grow, has increase dramatically, depending on the crop, sometimes doubling, tripling. Right? So yields are up even though the amount of soil and the health of the soil is declining. How can that be? It's because of these high technology, high energy solutions. Fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides. Right? That's a classic technological fundamentalist solution to a problem. Okay. Now, there are unfortunately, some problems with the solution. All of that, fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides, is dependent on petroleum and natural gas. It's all fossil fuel-based agriculture today. Right? Yields are up, but yields are up because we are using enormous amounts of fossil fuels. The joke in the ag circles I run in is food today is actually the conversion of oil into edibles. You're eating oil, essentially. Right? That without all that oil, you would not be eating the way you eat. So the declining amount of and fertility of the soil is being offset by high technology, high energy solutions dependent on fossil fuels. The supply of fossil fuels in the world, in case you haven't noticed, is finite, yes? So we're running out of the fuels necessary to sustain this green revolution. We're also finding all sorts of other problems that as this so-called green revolution plays out, that it's probably not sustainable. Okay. So from a technological fundamentalist point of view, you have a problem. You solve it through high energy, high technology. And if those solutions don't seem to be permanent, may not work, how do you deal with the problem then? From a technological fundamentalist point of view. More high-tech, high-energy solutions. You just find you deal with the problems of the human presence on Earth and its effect on the ecosphere with simply more of the same. So I'm defining technological fundamentalism as the assumption that high-energy, high-technology solutions can always be found to the problems we face in the ecosphere, including the problems that are created by high-energy, high-technology. So that the technological fundamentalist point of view is always searching for that technological fix, and therefore avoiding other kinds of answers that might deal with the problems. So I'm suggesting that in addition to national and economic fundamentalism, the dominant ideology of this country is very much hooked to a kind of technological fundamentalism. Let's take another example real quickly before we look at another clip. As we said, we have a problem of declining fossil fuel resources. Right? A lot of our fossil fuels are used in transportation, correct? Right? And this is a culture that grew up on cheap oil, and personal transportation based on cheap oil is the norm. How many of you have ever ridden in a car? Y'all drive cars too? Yeah? Boy, that's kind of fun, isn't it? You just get in the car, you zip around. Highways make it easy to go everywhere. All right. Now, unfortunately, the cheap energy that's made it possible for all of us to get into cars and zip around may not be there. So how do you deal with that problem? That's a problem. Like it or not, it's a problem. Okay? Well, there could be different kinds of solutions. You could say, okay, we've had this kind of brief period, maybe 6 or 7 decades, where we got used to having the capacity to move about quickly and easily and cheaply. The problem is that can't last forever. So the solution to the problem of transportation based on dwindling supplies of fossil fuels is we stop assuming we're going to just move around quickly all the time. Right? And that we reorient our lives. Maybe we start reshaping the way cities look. Maybe we invest in mass transit. Maybe we just accept the fact that we're not going to go places as much. Maybe we accept the fact that we're not going to be able to get on an airplane, right, if we have the money. We're just not going to be able to get on an airplane and fly around at our discretion. Might be that that's the way to solve the problem, yes? Is that the way this country is trying to solve the problem? No, we still have to keep our lifestyle, but what we're going to do is we're going to find technological solutions, yes? We're going to turn corn into fuel. we're going to turn garbage into fuel, we're going to tap into geothermal. We got 101 different technological solutions. That's a technological fundamentalist culture, I'm arguing. And again, our interest in this is how journalism, which is trying to report on the world for people, either accepts that ideological framework or might resist it, critique it. So what we're trying to say here is, can we identify the ideologies that shape our world, and can we get outside of them with a different ideological perspective to critique them?